Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, and today I come to you sliced, diced, bleeding, and bone sore as I bring you the review for Warhammer End Times Vermintide, a Left 4 Dead style game based in the Warhammer role-playing game universe, as you take on the mantle of 5 courageous heroes that smash, slice, freeze, fire, break, bruise, tear, and bash sentient New York sewer rats that have figured out how to wear armor and are attacking the countryside. Yes, boys and girls, in Vermintide you get to fight the Skaven, which to many like myself is water to a thirsty man. The real question here is, did Warhammer Vermintide hit the mark that Left 4 Dead set so many years ago, a sublime mix of subtle interactions between teammates and terrain as they try to cut through the countless tides of enemies in front of them? Or is Warhammer End Times nothing more than a B-movie to Left 4 Dead's summer blockbuster, a game that misses the mark by throwing together some heroes and some bad guys and then slapping the Warhammer name on it? Let's check it out and see. So here's the review for Warhammer End Times Vermintide: housing worse than post-Katrina homesteads, wizards that have to let off gas or they die, and dwarven battle poetry fit for, well, probably not fit for anybody. As always, if you like the review, please subscribe, tell some friends, tweet it, whatever. Graphics are up first. Here's the thing. The game can throw a mighty number of enemies at you at any one time, easily getting into the 30 or 40 enemies range, and that's with many of them having unique patterns of mange, random bits of armor, wielding wind-up machine guns, or throwing gas bombs at you of questionable origin. On a 980 GTX, I get close to a solid 60 frames per second throughout at 920 by 1080, with a couple adjustments within the settings from extreme to high. And with all that's going on during the gameplay, with the massive number of special effects and particle generators getting thrown around, I'm actually really happy with that, because there is a ton going on in this title. With those settings, you get a wickedly cool architecture, some very nice textures throughout the game, and enemies with a variety of animations, attack patterns, and movement styles. That being said, some of the enemies can end up with decidedly low texture clothing and hoods from time to time, and though most of the environments are excellent, there are still places here and there that don't keep up with the rest of the title. All that being said, though, it still looks spectacular, with the green sickly hue of the magic moon above casting down beams to the ripple of brackish water sitting a little too long with bodies floating in it. And the game almost revels in delightful grotesqueness, with bloated bodies, desiccated corpses, and the occasional missing lower torso on spiked enemies. This is one of the only games I have seen to ever really absolutely nail the grim look of the Warhammer world so astutely, from architecture to character makeup. The main characters as well all look the part, from the needs a biscuit witch hunter and his rail-thin body to the burning tattoos of the Bright Wizard and the debonair almost look of the Empire Soldier. It all just rings authenticity to that world and that fiction. One thing of note, due to the style of gameplay, there's not collision detection in large groups, nor friendly fire for the most part, something to keep track of if that kind of thing bothers you, but plain and simple, it wouldn't have been able to be done with this many enemies. Honestly, excellent graphics, but those who see lower frame rates might want to mess around with the shadow and lighting settings first, as they really should be called frame rate killer, and please send us a crash log. Sound, music, and voice.
Medical supplies at last! He never stood a chance! Let's get this done! Iraqi coming! I hear.
And sound, as always, is up first. From the crackle of fireballs to the ring of sword-off shield, the sound here is excellent. And though I would have loved more options for sound, instead of just headphones and stereo, as well as a low and high dynamic sound option, what is there is excellent, with a large number of special effects being applied throughout the title to all the various movesets, resulting in each level having its own tonal spectrum and sometimes sounding as different as they look. Music. Now, this is how you do music. Someone basically went out and found the most depressed string instrument they could find, and occasionally they hammer on it, while someone else throws down a beat on drums that probably look like picnic tables with rotten skin over the top of them. It's absolutely the best possible music you could imagine for this style of title. Dirge-like, discordant, and wholly, completely Warhammer. I wouldn't listen to it alone because I'm not sure I could basically say this is recognized as music in many parts, but instead a little bit more akin to someone falling down in a music store's instrument section and it just sounding cool when they did it. When you hear it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Sometimes music doesn't have to be that massive orchestra-driven affair, and this proves it. In many ways, this reminds me a little bit of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, just a musical style that's a little bit different than the titles that preceded, or even titles that are like it in the same genre. Voice. From the one-liners of the Dwarven almost sexual teasing towards the other characters to the innkeeper telling bits of your next mission, the voices are excellent and don't overstay their welcome. Each character you choose also offers up their own bits, and thankfully they give verbal hints as to what needs to occur next in a level or if your team is heading the right way. Also, I'm not from New York, so I don't know what a talking man-sized rat sounds like, but the Skaven voices are epically well done here, with threats, warning, and dire premonitions rattling out of dying throats throughout the entirety of the gameplay. Absolutely spot on. And that, of course, brings us to gameplay. This is typical Left 4 Dead. Up to 4 players or a mixture of humans and bots enter levels via a map in their home base, which in this case is a very cool decked out inn. Once inside the level, they tear through it, trying to perform particular steps towards its completion, like gathering food, warning towns about the Skaven, or just blowing shit up. And the enemies are dispersed throughout the level by an artificial intelligence-like system that tries to keep the action flowing but not overflowing, and the strategy useful and not unwieldy. And the combat is absolutely phenomenal. To me, this is the best melee combat in a game, bar none, with an absolutely rock-solid feedback system, with weapons sticking in enemies, knockbacks, and physical repercussions of both hits and misses that really just defines fun for me personally. The combination of weak and powerful attacks as well as the various secondary attacks, in addition to the ability for each character to get a good number of different weapon combinations that might play differently, means that there is something here for everyone. And though each of the character does fit sort of loosely within the typical expectations a gamer would have, like tank and healer, to Vermintide's credit, it's all more complex than that, with surprises like the dwarf who's not only an absolute Skaven killing disaster movie up close, but with his equipped crossbow can send please die alerts to enemies from across the battlefield with stunning precision. All the characters have this duality, even like the witch hunter, his finesse driven but light rapier backed up by double hand cannons that can be fired with stunning speed. It's this split personality that could have wreaked havoc on the gameplay, but instead lets everyone shine when they need to, and even the ranger style character can be a tank for a moment in the right setup and under dire circumstances, obviously. The levels are also set up with an almost dizzying array of choices when it comes to passage, and getting lost is a very real possibility, though usually quickly rectified if you listen to the characters' audio cues that they give out. Whether traveling through misty moors sending throat songs to enemies without their comrades' knowledge, or fighting tooth and nail right in the center of town, the levels are absolutely insanely packed with content and exploration potential. Sadly, a couple drag down the package. Some levels fall into the dangerous pattern of being created more for looks than for gameplay, and that can result in some enjoyment mishaps. For example, a level called Black Powder is set on a waterfront town area where you need to get black powder from various places in people's homes, and don't ask me why they store this shit right near their cheese and biscuits, but whatever. Sadly, the set pieces look amazing, but this place also suffers from an almost glorious number of bugs, from falling through into places you can't escape, to getting stuck on invisible geometry, to watching bots, if you play with them, stand right beside you and not heal you because you're 1 foot off the beaten path, and that's just 1 foot too many for them. Luckily, of the 10 plus maps, only 2 suffer dramatically from this, and I expect patches to fix that very quickly. Now, speaking of the AI, the enemy AI is fantastic, treating the world like its own jungle gym. Almost no place is safe, and the developers have hit the high water mark when it comes to nailing a unique creature like the Skaven and their personality and strengths right from the get-go. It's not perfect, but it is very, very good. Sadly, your partner AI is a bit more hit and miss, and depending on the level, they could help you gather sacks of flour and defend you like a berserker, to simply running back and forth in a hallway as if surprised that the doorway is not to another universe, so they just keep testing it. It's infuriating to go from one well-placed and paced level to another and see such a vast difference in its handling. Luckily, that only cropped up in those same 2 maps that had problems with their overall architecture and setup, and I certainly wish they had been within part of the beta so that Fat Shark could have got some of that feedback. Now, the multiplayer works very well. Jump in, make sure your VoIP is on since it's off by default, and see what you can do, and good teams can do tremendously well even in the harder difficulties. And difficult is what this game excels at. If it's not the levels themselves packed with entire French legions of rats, it's the loot system. I hate it. Now, maybe I love it. No, seriously, I think I hate it. You see, depending on how you do in a level, you get dice. Depending on the type of dice you get, you have a higher or lower chance of rolling a face on the dice, and the more faces means different weapon types. However, in a Destiny-like travesty, those weapons can be for anyone on the team, meaning that you could play for hours and get very little for the characters that you enjoy playing as. Nicely enough, within a couple levels of playing, you can unlock the Forge at the end, which does allow you to break down weapons you don't want, fuse them together into weapons of a random newer sort, and upgrade any special weapons you do get. But since you get almost nothing if you don't win a level, and then when you do, you're not guaranteed almost anything, it can kill that fun just a bit, especially if you fought tooth and nail through a level and you end up getting a knife for a character you have no plan on playing whatsoever. So do that 5 more times and then fuse them and hope that fusing that creates a weapon you can use. The mixture of lean treasure and random results can hit you pretty hard. You just have to expect it. Luckily, the different settings you can do, easy, medium, hard, works out really well. Fun factor. The game is, for all intents and purposes, one of the most enjoyable titles I have played in all of 2015, if not 2014 as well. Its aim towards reflecting the Warhammer world and levels with various goals and completion sets is absolutely spot on. Sure, it's held back by a couple levels that need more work and a loot system that could use some work of its own as well, but I can't remember the last time I enjoyed a game this much. In both single player, definitely enjoyed it there, and in multiplayer for this period of time. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale. This thing's $30, and it has a boatload of levels, has a great gameplay loop. This is a buy, despite a couple missteps. It's absolutely an amazing set piece, backed up by rock-solid gameplay, and in a world I personally consider one of my favorites. Each character has their own weapon sets like rapier, handguns, axe, shield, mage staff, swords, knives, hammers, and the like, and each can also switch that up in various ways, meaning you can play this title for a long damn time. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the review. If you did, maybe tweet it out, tell people, share it, subscribe, whatever. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. Peace out.